In honor of upcoming Fat Tuesday, let's talk about shemen. Shalom and welcome back to Hebrew Vocab Boost. Mardi Gras is upon us, and so I wanted to talk about the Gras part, which is shemen in Hebrew. The root is Shin Mem Nun, and this root has two completely unrelated meanings. The first one is fat or oil, and the second one is the number 8. Both of these meanings with multiple related words are found in the Tanakh and in modern Hebrew. In the Tanakh, the number of words based on this shoresh are about evenly split between the two meanings. Let's get started with the meaning of fat or oil. On the oil-fat side, the word that I see most in the Tanakh is shemen or shamen, and it's usually translated as oil. Oil was mentioned many times with regards to the various offerings that were to be made. Usually it specified that oil needed to be mixed in with flour, but a few times it was actually specified that no oil was to be mixed in. So it was obviously used in cooking, but also it was used for lighting, for anointing, and for other priestly rituals. And so you can see that oil was very valuable and was even often on a list of treasures that someone was carrying or offering to another person. Twice it's used in smichut with the word lechem. So it creates the phrase lechem shemen, which literally means oil bread. And I'm not sure what makes a bread oil bread, but it was there twice in the Tanakh. Of course, if you're living in the Mediterranean in biblical times, where are you getting your oil from? Olives, of course. And a handful of times we see etz shemen or etz shamen, meaning olive or oleaster trees. Now, I was not familiar with oleaster, and Wikipedia says it is a low-quality wild olive, and dictionary.com says that it is a tree with an olive-like fruit. So either way, they were saying the oil tree to basically mean the olive tree. I mean, it does make sense. And also, a handful of times, shemen is translated directly as ointment. So I do kind of love this. It's the oil, but it's also where the oil came from, as in the olive, and it's also what the oil is made into. Mishman, or it's more often in its plural, mishmanim, is a noun that refers to the goodness that the earth gives us to make us fat. That is, it provides us with food. And we only once see it in its plain singular form. Other times it's a plural smichut, such as mishmanei haaretz, meaning the fat of the land, or with a pronominal ending, as in b'mishmanav, in its fatness. And it doesn't only refer to what the land produces by way of food, it also can refer to the sturdiest people in the land. So I looked at these words and I really wondered if the me at the beginning was part of the word or if it was the prepositional prefix, meaning from or of. And luckily I was not the first person to ask this question, and I found the answer online. The answer was provided by a Dr. Meshulam Klarberg, and I found it at shemayisrael.com. And once I read it and his reasoning, I remembered that I had heard this rule. So I felt like, I should have known all along, and it really made sense. So the prefix me, meaning from, is actually a shortened form of the freestanding preposition min. And to compensate for the dropped nun, the following consonant gets a doubling dagesh. And since the shin in mishman or mishmane does not have a doubling dagesh, that means that the mi cannot be a preposition, meaning of. It is a part of the word. In the Tanakh, there's also an adjective, shamen in the masculine and shmena in the feminine, that can refer to food, meaning it is rich tasting, or to soil, meaning it's rich or fruitful, like it will produce a lot. Or it can refer to people, and it's usually not the way we would say fat. It almost always gets translated by the JPS as robust. Verbs are pretty sparse in the Tanakh. We have the Pa'al verb lishmon, showing up as yishman and shamanta. And that means that someone grew fat, became fat, and not in a good way. This verb seems to also include becoming evil or starting to practice evil ways. So hashmen lev means to dull someone's mind, and this looks like a hif'il verb. So whereas the nouns and adjectives are full of positivity, the two verbs, not so much. In modern times, I've found 4 nouns. Of course, shemen is really common. We can find some version of shemen in almost any kitchen. Shamenet is cream or sour cream. So I have usually seen it in the sense of sour cream, but I think it can also be some kind of a sweet cream. Shuman is fat as a noun. And so like the fat of meat or the fat of an animal, I've only seen it in the wild once, and it was in an expression, te'eh shuman, which means fat cells. And hashmana is a verbal noun from the hif'il verb, meaning gaining weight or even obesity. As for adjectives, we have shamen, which means fat, and also shamanman, which means more like chubby or plump. I do feel like it's a little bit of a kinder word. I have a book about an elephant family where the mom gets pregnant and she's described as being shamanmenet. But I've also seen shamanman refer to plump meat. As for verbs, the pa'al lishmon means to become fat, and lehashmin means to make someone or something fat, which makes sense. That's usually the relationship between a pa'al verb and a hif'il verb of the same shoresh. But lehashmin is also often used to mean to become fat. And in that same book with the elephants, it says the mama elephant, hishmina vehishmina vehishmina. So she was not making anybody else fat. She herself was getting bigger. And leshamen, the PL verb, means to lubricate something. Moving on to the meaning of 8. Of course, most of these words will be actual numbers, and they really haven't changed since biblical times. We have shmone and shmona, which both mean 8. Shmone is the feminine, shmona is the masculine. Shmonesre and shmona asar, meaning 18. Shmonim, meaning 80. And we have shmini, meaning 8th, as in the 8th day or the 8th month or 8th in line. And in the Tanakh and also in modern times, we also have a special smichut form of the masculine form of 8, and it's shmonat. In the Tanakh, we see it in the phrase ben shmonat yamim, which refers to an 8-day-old baby. And this is the day that we typically perform the Brit Milah, the ritual circumcision. The word shmonat also goes with alafim, which means thousands. So shmonat alafim is the way to say 8,000. It's not the same with 800 because the word hundred is feminine. So we have shmone me'ot, which means 800, and shmonat alafim, which means 8,000. And lastly, with regards to actual numbers, we have shminit, which can be the feminine ordinal number. And we see this in the Tanakh when it talks about the 8th year, Hashanah Hashminit. But in modern times, it also can be 1/8, the fraction. But this one is not attested anywhere in the Tanakh. So some nouns that are based on this shoresh are shminya, with the plural shminiot, which can mean an octet, like a group of 8 people, or it can mean a figure 8, or it can mean an octave, which is a musical term. You go up or down 8 notes, and you're back at the exact same note, only an octave higher or an octave lower. Although for that one, they often also say octava. And there's also meshuman, which is an octagon, an 8-sided figure. Okay, so that's it for today. Now you know most, if not all, of the words related to the number 8 and the concept of oil and fat. And by the way, Mardi Gras in Hebrew is Yom Shlishi Shamen, just a literal translation of Mardi and Gras. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave it in the comments and I will do my best to respond. And also, if you want to see more about the words from this shoresh, check out my TikTok channel, Hebrew Help with Sup here. Hit like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe and press the notification bell if you want to see more. See you next time.